think we're on. Welcome, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Philip Manokhin, the head of
Oh,
BD of Blockwallet, joining us to talk about privacy, MEV, and their wallet. So, welcome.
thank you, Bon.
So, before we start, as usual, let's go through with the disclaimers, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing said here is to be taken as financial advice. Myself and my relations may or may not have positions invested in the projects interviewed on this podcast. Do your own research, and this podcast is simply for educational and entertainment purposes. So, having gotten that out of the way, let us give an introduction for Blockwallet. So, Blockwallet is a wallet that uses privacy enhancing smart contracts to make your crypto transfers as private and as secure as bank transfers. The fact that one would always leave a trail of digital information on the blockchain means that anyone can find and see what DApps one has used, transfers one has made, and the crypto assets one holds. Obviously, that is a bit of a problem. Blockwallet is here to solve that problem. So I'm very interested in this podcast and in this episode because I think privacy is very important. Privacy is certainly very important to me. And I think it should be important to anyone working in the blockchain and crypto industry. Privacy to me is one of those ancient things that constitutes the very fabric of freedom. And unfortunately, at least in my view, man cannot create privacy. It can only exchange it for something else, which is why you have the famous Benjamin Franklin aphorism that somebody who sacrifices freedom for safety would get neither freedom nor safety. So, and I suppose a lot of people in crypto would resonate with that philosophy. Having said that, there's a lot of things still to build in terms of the crypto infrastructure to actually meet that philosophy. So this is why Blockwallet appeals to me, but its appeal may be lost to a lot of people who have become accustomed to the loss of privacy. So to begin, perhaps let us discuss the motivations and background of this project. So Philip, can you give us an introduction about yourself and how did you get into crypto? What is the motivation for building Blockwallet?
Sure. So I've been in crypto since 2017 bull run. What attracted me to crypto is, the idea of, serving people who are not currently being served with the current financial system and providing them with the, opportunities to participate. The way I joined Blockwallet, I just realized that, crypto was taking too much attention from my life. So I decided to make a move from my regular life towards crypto. I started working with DAOs, and then DAOs were nice, but I was missing, the structure, having the proper team, and so on. And so I started looking for other options. I came across Blockwallet. They were just launching. The product wasn't out yet. They just held their IDO, so it was the perfect time to join. And yeah, I jumped in. As far as the backstory of the product, I think it's quite interesting. One of our founders was spending a lot of time on Twitter, and so as you know, all those influencers, they post about what tokens they buy, their positions, and so on and so forth. If until DeFi summer 2020, that was fine because everyone was trading on centralized exchanges. With DeFi summer, it brought a lot of changes as far as how people trade. A lot of people went from trading on centralized exchanges towards trading on dexes. And so with that, they made themselves exposed to the public. And so what one of our founders did, he was pretty much scrolling through the Twitter, looking at the post, and then going on Etherscan, searching for those wallets that would have those tokens or would purchase certain tokens at a certain time. And then he would put those wallets on notifications and just copy trade those influencers. It was a pretty successful strategy for him because he was able to buy right away and sell right away as well. And so he kind of realized that there is this area in crypto that is still hasn't been taken care of, which is privacy on chain. I mean, crypto is anonymous, but the problem is that the more breadcrumbs you leave behind you, the more association you build around you and your wallet, and it's easier for people to build that connection. And the more we thought about privacy, we just realized how much more important it is beyond trading on dexes. And here we could talk about sending funds to your friends or family, paying for for goods at a physical location or e-commerce store, payroll, and so on and so forth. And so the idea was born to create a privacy wallet that would provide people, with a level of privacy that's sufficient for them to operate in crypto.
I see. Can you give us a simple case for those who are not evangelized or those who are accustomed to the loss of privacy? Why does privacy matter?
For sure. So let's say I was to send you, I don't know, 200 USDT because we're going for a conference and you bought a ticket for both of us, right? And then I had to, pay you back. Or maybe we rented Airbnb together and then, you paid for the Airbnb and I have to transfer you some money to pay you back. Currently for me, all my funds they stored on chain. So what I would normally do, I would take some ETH or take some USDT and just send it to you. What you could do from your end, you could take a look at the transaction on Etherscan. You'd be able to find my wallet address. Then you could go and see all my holdings, what I buy, what I sell, when I do that. And this is quite concerning because with that you would be able to look into my net worth, look into how much I make, and so on and so forth. This does not happen with banks because when you transfer funds between banks or like PayPal or whatever, none of that is on public ledger, right? But with crypto it is. So that's one example. Another example could be, let's say you're a founder of a crypto project and you have to pay your employees or you have to pay contractors and stuff like that. Chances are most of your funds are going to be in crypto, so you're going to make those payments in crypto. And same thing goes here. You send the payroll to your employees. They take a look at your wallet. They see how much funds you have. They see like how much money you transfer every month to different addresses, and then we don't live in isolation. So I know what kind of coins my coworkers own. So I would be able to go through those addresses, find wallets that could be my coworkers' wallets, and then see how much they make, and so on and so forth. It's just not. It doesn't do any good here. Creates animosity and stuff like that. So that would be another great example. And the very simple one that I really like to give is like when you go to Starbucks and you pay for your coffee. Let's say you pay with a bank card. Barista doesn't get to know how much you own, how much you spend, how much you save, so on and so forth. With crypto, it's a little bit different. I know that crypto payments are not that big yet, but I also know that in Asia, for example, more and more people are using it for everyday purchases. They go to supermarkets and stuff like that. So with that, I think it's really dangerous to just to show your financial information to the merchants. And same goes for the merchants. I don't think any merchants want you to know how much money they have and their cash flow and stuff like that. So that being said, there is a huge difference between a banking system and crypto, in the sense that crypto is a public ledger, banking is not. And so in crypto, there's no privacy at all. It's anonymous, but again, the more evidence you leave online or offline, the easier it is to find you. So I think that this would be a few examples.
That's very interesting. I think the point about the how the lack of privacy can generate animosity between, I suppose, especially devs in a crypto project can be is something definitely a very interesting point, because when things are going great, when in a bull market, of course, devs would be fine because they're getting paid. But when things go bad in a bear market, as people have talked about recently, about the number of hacks, like if they can see what each other are making and that creates animosity, it generates a very nasty dynamic and incentive for them to just hack the project that they've been building. So I suppose let us move on to the second. Yeah, yes, please.
I just wanted to say, and it's also just it's not good for the team synergy. of course, hacks is one thing, but another thing is if we just talk about projects, and we disregard the hack risks, it's just bad for the culture, So there is that as well.
Yes. So why a wallet? Why aren't privacy coins good enough?
So I think the main problem with privacy coins is that historically they had tensions with centralized exchanges. So it might be quite challenging for users to move their funds in and out using privacy coins. And so there is definitely a level of friction there. And same goes for privacy chains, like secret, for example. Users also have to bridge in and bridge out, and sometimes it takes quite a long time for them to do so. So for us, we thought that wallet is such a foundational layer of crypto. It's when you think about wallets in crypto, I like to think about it the same way as browsers in Web 2 are kind of similar to wallets in Web 3 in the sense that it's a door for a wider world of either internet or crypto in our case. So it makes a lot of sense to provide privacy on a very basic foundational layer, so that users they get their privacy through the wallet in the very beginning, and then everything that they go afterwards is private by default.
I think the point about how privacy coins are often often don't have a very good relationship with centralized exchanges pretty interesting. I think recently there's a piece of news about how Monero fanboys are trying to do a bank run on centralized exchanges to test if centralized exchanges are really holding that amount of a Monero that they claim to be holding. So there's definitely a point there. So let's talk a little bit about how Blockwallet. So what is the architecture? How does it work?
So if we talk about Blockwallet, and we don't, we're not talking about privacy features, it works in a very similar way that MetaMask does. It's a non-custodial wallet. You can go to any DApp that you like, you can connect there, and you can interact with the DApp. Again, if you're not using any privacy features, the interaction is going to be exactly like MetaMask. You'll be able to go on Etherscan. You'll see every transaction, on Etherscan. So everything is transparent. Now, when we talk about privacy features, that's where we get our edge. So, for example, privacy tools, I think it's one of our core features of our wallet. And the way privacy pools work, it's pretty much a zkSnarks smart contract that allows people to deposit funds and then withdraw those funds with a different wallet, but in a way that they pretty much can provide the proof that they deposited the funds without giving any information about the wallet addresses or amounts or anything like that. So that's one thing. We also have IP protection for our users, which really shines especially on the background of the news of MetaMask banning Iranian and Venezuelan users to access Ethereum network, which is really sad to me because, again, the reason I joined crypto was because I was really excited about a tech that was designed to serve the underserved, and right now it just feels like we're going backwards. Like we're literally taking those underserved people and we use them as leverage in order to for like political reasons or whatever. And so with us, those users don't really have that issue that they do have with MetaMask. And the reason is that before we send our request to the nodes, it goes through the IP through proxies. And so those proxies obfuscate the IP of the user, and the node provider don't get to see where the user is coming from. So that's another thing. A third would be front-running protection. For that, we teamed up with Flashbots and we use their open ends. And so the way it works is instead of Blockwallet users transaction going to the public mempool, it goes to the private mempool and it gets mined there. The benefit here is that front running is a huge industry. A lot of people lose a lot of money there. So with the front running protection, it's simply not possible because those transactions are not going through the public pool. So front runners are just simply not able to see those transactions.
Okay.
And I think one more feature I'd like to mention is anti-phishing feature that we have. And the way it works is we pretty much teamed up with an NFT artist. He created, an algorithm that can generate millions and millions of variations, and so each Blockwallet user gets assigned, a variation of an NFT that, he sees it on the wallet all the time. And so the point of this feature is that if a user lands on a phishing website, sometimes those phishing websites, they try to emulate the wallet UX UI. With this anti-phishing feature, the scammers, they just wouldn't be able to replicate the same pattern because they don't have the algorithm, they don't know how it works. So that's another really important feature for us. So again, in terms of how it works, on the basic level, it's very similar to other non-custodial wallets, but our users can use additional features that we offer, to reach privacy, to save money, and just to be able to continue using blockchain no matter where they are in the world.
I see. So I think I would like to learn a little bit more about the structure and the architecture of Blockwallet, because as far as I know, the only privacy protocol that I'm familiar with is Tornado. So can you perhaps, and as I understand from the docs, the Blockwallet architecture is somewhat similar to Tornado. Perhaps you can explain a little bit more about how it works, and perhaps tell us a little bit why Blockwallet in itself is superior to Tornado as well.
For sure. So I guess I would like to start with how Tornado Cash works in general. So the way it works is, let's say you have like a basket of apples, right? And you put one apple in and you take one apple out. The more apples in the basket, the more options you have to take an apple out. So it's the same with Tornado Cash. It's all about how many people are using the protocol and how many deposits are going in and going out. This is what we call an anonymity set. So when we were building Blockwallet, we knew that we wanted to provide a feature similar to Tornado Cash, but we also realized that Tornado Cash has a lot of users. We practically had none, and so with no users, it's really hard to create the anonymity set that would be enough for people to to use the feature. So we decided to use Tornado Cash smart contracts, to reach that anonymity set right away. So with that, we do use their smart contracts right now. However, the transactions are going through our own relayers, which allows us to control the fee, collect the fee, pay for the gas, stuff like that. And so, yes, for now we do use Tornado Cash smart contracts, but I think our grand plan is to move away from Tornado Cash eventually and have our own smart contracts deployed. So, because for example, if we're talking about blank token, obviously Tornado Cash doesn't have a privacy pool for a blank token, but I think this is something that we would like to have. I think this is something that the community has been requesting a lot. So it'll make sense to deploy a contract for our token. And I think the further we go, the more contracts will deploy on different networks for different tokens. So eventually we will move away from Tornado Cash, but I think it's going to happen as soon as we have a sufficient anonymity set to do so. And so when you compare Tornado Cash to Blockwallet, I think the main difference is the user experience. I'm not sure if you've tried using Tornado Cash. I've tried it a few times, and it's really complicated. Like the process is really convoluted. It's like you have to go to Tornado Cash. You have to deposit your ETH. Then it spits you out like a privacy note. You have to save that privacy note somewhere safe. Then you have to plug in from another account and enter the privacy note, withdraw your funds. So it's a pretty lengthy process that, it has many steps to it. With us, we try to simplify it as much as we can. It's literally a 2-step process. You deposit the funds, you withdraw it. You don't worry about your privacy notes. It just happens on the back end. So in terms of, usability, I think our product is much more usable than Tornado. Yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic. Definitely learned a bit of things there. So I think one of the problems that you guys, so from your answer, I think one of the problems you guys are facing is the anonymity set that you guys have is not as big as
Yep.
Tornado. So which is why you need to take the anonymity set of Tornado and build from that first. So
That's right.
that's pretty interesting. So as I understand, zk plays a role in the architecture of your wallet, right? What is the
Yep.
role? How does it work?
For sure. So our privacy pools, they use zkSnarks smart contracts, and again, it's Tornado Cash smart contracts. But the point is that the zkSnark pretty much allows people to to make a deposit with one wallet and then withdraw this funds with a different wallet. And so the way it works, when I mentioned the privacy note that Tornado users have to save it and so on and so forth. What privacy note is, it's pretty much it's a string of hash, and this string it's made up of 2 parts. The first part is nullifier. The second part is the hash itself. So sorry. So the way it works is that when a person tries to withdraw their funds, they can use the privacy note, which pretty much proves the fact that they deposited a certain amount and that this amount hasn't been withdrawn yet. And so with that, there is zero knowledge in the sense that a user doesn't provide their wallet address, they don't provide the amounts or anything like that. They simply say that we have deposited and we haven't withdrawn yet. So that's how zkSnarks work. And again, we use it for our privacy pools. And I think this is a very basic use of zkSnarks. Because of course you can obfuscate funds and stuff like that, but you could also use this technology for other stuff like, I don't know, proving your identity or so on and so forth. So for us, we're using it for for the financial purposes, but again, this technology can be used for much more than that.
Is really cool. So I want to talk a little bit more about the use of Blockwallet and the privacy it enables in preventing the various attacks that that a whale or a person who is doing very large trades or large transactions on chain, how it would protect them. So for those of us who are not familiar with MEV and front running, can you explain to us what is MEV, what is a sandwich attack, and what is front running?
For sure. So all sandwich attack, MEV, front running, it's pretty much the same thing. We could talk about it for quite a long time, but I'll try to summarize it in a short sentence. So long story short, front running is when you go on Uniswap and let's say you want to swap ETH for blank token. When you do that, your transaction first goes to the public pool, and it's waiting there to be mined by the miners. So it's kind of like a queue of many transactions that are just waiting to get mined and get into the block. What attackers do, they go and they look into this public pool. It's called mempool. They look into that pool and they see, okay, this person is trying to buy this amount of blank with this amount of ETH. And so they run their calculations, and everything is happening really quick. So it's really robust algorithms, but they pretty much look at the pending transactions in the mempool. They see the delta that they could steal from the user, because there is usually slippage and stuff like that. And they pretty much they place 2 orders to buy and to sell back to back before and after the transaction that they're trying to attack. What that does, it creates volatility. A user ends up paying the worst price for their order, and then the price goes back to normal. It's a huge industry. It's a multi-million-dollar industry in crypto that a lot of people they just don't realize that they lose money there. And there is actually a great website where anyone can go to and can check out how much money they've lost on sandwich attacks. It's called sandwich.wtf. So it's definitely a concern for whales, because obviously they play with larger volumes, so the losses are much higher. But it's also an issue for smaller players. Again, nobody likes to lose money. So yeah, that's pretty much front running.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, the whoever is doing the attack sees that you've made that you're putting through a trade in the mempool, which could be sort of understood as a order book kind of thing. So it sees that you're going through, and it knows that it is going to jack up the price. So they make an order that would allow them to sell to you at that higher price or whatever. By they make that order, and the way they make that order go in front of your order is to incentivize the gas by incentivize the nodes to reorder their order in front of yours by bribing them, by pushing up the gas price that they're willing to process their order. Once
That's
they
right.
get the money, once they push the price and then your order goes through, they sell it, so they make a profit. So basically that's the idea, right?
Yep.
So I personally, thankfully, has not experienced any of that, but my condolences to anybody who has experienced that. So,
oh man, I have a lot of wallets that got tracked this way, but it is
have
what
you
it is,
personally
And
experienced it yourself?
yes, of course. I mean, it's a really, it's not that hard to come across, front running. It's, it happens to brand new tokens. It happens to, to majors. It's really easy to get caught in it.
I suppose it's particularly prevalent when you have a lot of on-chain activity. Let's say, for example, when a token is being airdropped, people want to sell it before anybody else, and there's a lot of activity and a lot of opportunity there, right?
Actually, there was a great example recently with Ape coin, the Bored Ape Yacht Club coin, right? So when they just launched it, I mean, I'm not sure if you can still go back to the chart and see those, those spikes, but people were literally paying like millions of dollars for one coin at the time. And it's not that they did it consciously. They didn't know that they're going to pay such money for so little coins, but they just knew that there is a lot of movement, a lot of interest in the market. They didn't care about the price that they get in. They just wanted to get in. And front runners, they knew that people had this psychology, and they just executed on it. And so yeah, it's when I was looking at the charts, it's heartbreaking. People literally paying like thousands and thousands and thousands time more than the actual price of the token.
So Blockwallet prevents that by masking the transactions you're sending. So they can't. So basically, they can't see the mempool, and they can't see in our analogy, the orders that you're putting into the order book. So they can't see it, and then they can't calculate the attack that they will that they will launch. Is that the idea?
So we're not masking those. We're actually instead of sending those transactions to the public mempool, it goes through a private mempool. It gets mined in private, so that no outsiders can see what's going on. And then once it gets mined, it goes to the block, and by the time it's inside the block, it's too late for the attackers to do anything about it.
I see. So I think that is very interesting. Let's talk a little bit more about what's next for Blockwallet. So what are your thoughts about the future development of privacy in crypto, and what is next for Blockwallet's roadmap? What do you have up on your sleeve?
For sure. So we still have to deliver some of the core features that I think it's vital for the wallet to have these features such as hardware wallet support, swaps, and stuff like that. So these are the things that we're working on right now. I think we'll deliver these features in the near future. And then once the core features are done, we're going to deliver staking. This is something our token holders have been asking for a while. Our staking platform is also probably going to have LP mining as well, so that we've been offering LP mining for a very long time, but up until now we've been using third-party platforms for that. So with the staking platform, I think we'll be able to consolidate all those things under one roof. And right now we're working with the team on reimagining tokenomics, finding the right market fit, finding the right angles for marketing and stuff like that. So there's a lot of like administrative work going on right now, and of course we're always working on coming up with new innovative features that could save our users money, save our users time, make the experience with crypto more pleasurable and stuff like that. So because again, we do see that DeFi and wallet landscape, it has a lot of room for improvement, and so we're currently working with some people from academia, who have PhDs and cybersecurity and cryptography, and so with those guys we're working on on security features that maybe could replace hardware wallets, or maybe could supplement hardware wallets. But yeah, the idea is that if we talk about hardware wallets in general, I think there is very small percentage of people who actually use those wallets, and even smaller percentage of people who know how to use it, even though they have it. And so with us, we just want to make crypto as easy as possible for the end user. And so yeah, that's something that we're trying to innovate right now. Another thing I would like to mention is that so recently there was this actually today this news came out about Apple Cloud and MetaMask, and how there is a new phishing vector of attack there. And so I think that happens because some wallets don't really care about how their users store their private keys and seed phrases. They just want to make sure that a user creates a wallet and then off they go. So with us, we're trying our best to to make that experience better as well. Because again, every time I create a wallet, I have to take, I don't know, like a piece of paper or a metal seed plate, and then I have to do the work and then worry about where to hide it. And me personally, I move a lot from like country to country, so for me to take a metal plate and just to dig it in the ground, it's not really viable. So it's even more headache. But yes, so what we're thinking of doing is that maybe integrations like 1Password or Bitwarden could solve this headache for our users, in a sense that they don't have to worry about like where to store their seed phrase, if it's going to get stolen or not, if it's going to get fished out or not. They could use trusted players on the market and store their information this way. And so yeah, so one of the things that we're working on is that we would like to integrate those things into the user onboarding flow, so that the whole process is seamless. There is no hassle, there is no friction. That's one of our main focuses right now.
I think it is definitely disappointing to me, and probably to you as well, I'm sure, that most users are not paying a lot of attention to privacy. I think the reason why that is because the erosion of privacy is not tangible in any monetary sense. It doesn't cost anything. monetarily speaking, for me to sacrifice my privacy for something else, be it convenience or a free Facebook, free Facebook account, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So far, the push for people to care more about privacy is really mostly through ideological sermons, through an evangelism of some kind. Basically, we lambaste them, we persuade them, we beg them, we ask them, we try to convince them. But people are stubborn, just like how other people have talked about the importance of digital cleanliness and hygiene. It has not really taken off. So, what, in your opinion, is something that we can do further to make people take privacy seriously?
For sure. I think it's important, to differentiate privacy in Web2 and privacy in Web3, simply because the type of data that's being harvested in Web2 it's drastically different than the type of data that's being harvested in Web3. So it's a good thing that you mentioned, free account with Facebook, because the way Facebook makes money is of their users' data. They know what they like, they know who they follow, they know places that they go to, and so they're able to serve ads and stuff like that. So in that sense, I think it's economically for the Web2 giants, it's not interesting economically to make people to care about privacy, because again, that's how they make money. And again, the type of data that they collect, it's nothing, it's nothing too bad. Like it's your likes, it's places you go to, stuff like that. With Web3 though, it's all about financial data, and so with financial data, I think it's much more tricky than than your likes or follows and stuff like that. Just because if someone gets a hold of your financial data and of other people in your country or state or whatever, it's really easy to control people when you control their funds. So and I think it goes as far as freedom of speech, freedom of thought, and so on and so forth. If you remember, recently there was a quite a big story in Canada where there were freedom protests against certain things, and then Canadian citizens, they're supporting those protests by sending them Ethereum, sending Bitcoin, sending donations, and stuff like that. And so what happened at the end is that the government came out with the Emergency Act, and they pretty much said that the banks are now able to freeze any account for no rhyme or reason if they think that this account is associated with a terrorist moves or whatever. It should be frozen. Again, it's quite concerning that they're calling their own citizens terrorists and stuff like that. But it's also concerning how controlling they are as far as financial decisions go. And the problem is that in the same breath, they also equalize banks and centralized exchanges. So centralized exchanges can do exactly the same thing. If they think that a person is contributing to those freedom protests, they can just go ahead and freeze that account. And usually there is no way, or there is no process to unfreeze those funds. I think once it's frozen, you're pretty much screwed. So again, this happens strictly because they collect your financial data, and so they collected the financial data of the people who supported the protest, and then they pretty much used that as a leverage against the protesters to break down the movement. And that's exactly what I mean when I talk about controlling people, controlling thoughts, controlling speech and stuff like that. If the government didn't have out the reach to the financial instruments, they simply wouldn't be able to force people to not to support certain causes or whatever. So again, I think it's really important to understand that data collection in Web3 is very different than data collection in Web2. So that's one thing. And another thing, again, it's not that it doesn't cost you anything to not care about your privacy on chain. It does cost you a lot of money. And again, we can go back to front running, we can go back to, geofencing and stuff like that. So I think, the more time we spend in crypto and the further we go, the more and more we're going to see of these cases where privacy is really important, not just, in for individuals, but for nations in general. And I think it might take some time, again, because we just had 20 years of like Web2 data collection. People got used to it, there is this attitude of, I have nothing to hide. It's not about hiding. It's about having, it's about having a peace of mind. Because again, right now with NFTs, for example, a lot of high profile or a lot of blue chip NFTs now, they offer merch and stuff like that. So, and people are actually wearing this merch in public, and since NFTs they made their way into the masses, I see a lot of my friends like in real life using NFT profile pictures on Instagram even, and so then you get to see the NFT, you get to see the merge. Anyone can go on OpenSea, anyone can set up the filters, find the NFT, find the wallet. And then you have the Instagram with like, all the pictures, all the geotags, really easy to find the person. So I think privacy is important, from the economical standpoint, but it's also important from, just physical safety. You don't want to get invaded or anything like that. And especially, with platforms like Scene House and Propy, who aim to bring the real estate market on chain, I think it's becoming even more important, because now you have your residential address on your Ethereum wallet with your, with your home value and your NFTs and your tokens. And now, anyone could go to your wallets, like literally see your address, see how much tokens you have, see what NFTs you have. And then, the rest is up to them. So physical safety is a huge factor here, I think. And, if people are not getting invaded right now as much, it doesn't mean that they never will. I think what it means is that, the bad actors, they're not technical enough right now. So they're just not able to use, either Scan or OpenSea, for their bad purposes, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to learn these things. So I think it's really important physical safety is very important. Nobody's going to argue about that. And, with the way the space is developing, I think it's important to care about your privacy on chain, because that leads to your physical privacy.
I think I definitely agree with all of that. And on the point of how money is speech, I think that point is very clearly argued by one of the Supreme Court cases, Citizens United versus FEC. Money spent is free speech. In many cases and in many circumstances, you cannot speak effectively and be heard effectively if you don't spend money. And what is the point of speaking if it cannot be translated into action? Presumably, when we want to speak, it is because we believe in something good and something important, something nice, something beautiful, and we want to realize it. But if we're stifled and castrated in our action as much as we are in our speech, then what is the point of it? And I suppose that point about Canada, although it might probably offend some people's political sensitivities, I suppose the same point can be applied to Ukraine, right?
Of course,
Yeah.
Of course,
so,
and I know for a fact that Russian legislative, they don't allow people to contribute to Ukrainian funds and Ukrainian. I think even Red Cross is like under the question. So in that sense, I think it's a terrible situation when a lot of people are not agree with what the government does, but there is no way for them to to do anything about it. They can't even send their money. They're literally like helpless in this sense. So yeah, I think that's a great example. And it's I think Ukraine, what happened to Ukraine, it's just really like we can see the impact because crypto is at at the stage that it's at right now. But there has been a lot of uprisings in the past, and it's just crypto wasn't that prominent. But I think the more uprisings we see in the future, they're going to be more and more associated with crypto as well. So definitely gotta keep it clean, for sure.
And I think the point about geofencing is also very interesting because, like, for the past 2 to 3 years, I would say that the use of VPNs in so-called Western liberal democracies, the usual places where everybody's supposed to be safe and free, I think the adoption of VPNs has gone up drastically simply because people are feeling things are not going right, and they probably feel threatened. And I feel that the case for privacy protocols, be it wallets or tokens or chains, I think will also undergo a similar evolution. What worries me is whether that evolutionary time frame will be too short. We probably want it to be adopted in the same way and in the same time frame as crypto becomes mainstream. We don't want it to be something that gets adopted after crypto becomes mainstream. We
For
want it
sure.
to become mainstream along with crypto. So,
And it's interesting that you mentioned those Western countries, because I just find it really interesting when I talk to the devs in this space, and it's really interesting how if you talk to developers from Europe, for example, they'll have their name, they'll have their last name, LinkedIn profile, like full on. But when you talk to to the devs from the States, they're usually unknown. They usually have NFTs as their profile pictures, no real names, no cameras, no nothing. So, and I think it's not that they want to hide like that. I think they're just forced to do that because if they don't, they're going to get hassled.
yeah.
Yeah.
I want to end this podcast with one last speculative and hopefully fun question. So I think one of all the privacy implementations and protocols and projects out there, we have already seen Tornado Cash, some kind of a mixer. We have already seen wallets. We have seen privacy chains. One ancient technology that preserves privacy has not yet been tried, and I would say that is cash. We have not seen cash. We have not seen crypto cash. We have not seen physical crypto coins, except for the ones that we've seen in very early 2021, where you store a Bitcoin into
Mm-hmm.
a coin that has
Yeah.
that has a that stores it. It basically is a private key. We haven't seen that yet. Do you have any ideas? Do you have any thoughts on this implementation and whether it will become a real thing, or are we just going to see the death of cash?
Honestly, the more I think about it, the more I find cash to be. It's good to have, in a sense that it definitely provides you with privacy and everything, but I think the way the world is working today, there is less and less need for that. A great example would be, again, I'm going to go back to Canada, because I think it's one of the countries that is leading in terms of digital payments and stuff like that. It's very rare that you'll find people who actually carry cash there, simply because there is no need for that. And so I think the further we go with crypto, the more we're going to go away from cash. But that being said, cash, like physical cash, like might not be in use, but like people are still going to use banks probably and stuff like that. So I think as far as regulating off ramps and on ramps, we'll see a lot of changes there. But I think that's as much as I can say here.
One of the things that got me into crypto was a wonderful book, A History of Money by Jack Weatherford. Fantastically well written, very beautiful prose. Although it mentioned nothing about crypto, it talked extensively about currency debasement done by various regimes, especially by the Roman Empire, by various German kings during some Prussian wars that I can't remember, and eventually, of course, the US. And of course, it talked about the confiscation of gold in 1933 by Executive Order 6102. And from that, I'm, of course, reminded of the various monetary policies enacted by various Chinese regimes throughout history. For example, Zhuge Liang's forcible exchange of every 5 Zhu coins into 100, essentially debasing the monetary system inside Shuhan. or the Yuan dynasty's massive money printing to fuel their invasion of southern Song and eventually Korea and Japan. So, in face of that context, to me, the central bank digital currency (CBDC) is the next piece of monetary magic in the state's repertoire of tools to further tighten the control over the economy and so on. As they say in the World Economic Foundation or Forum, you will have nothing and you will be happy. So, what do you think that the privacy block wallet grants to? What do you think in terms of this? Like, how can the privacy granted by Blockwallet help protect users in face of this macroeconomic trend?
For sure. So, before I begin, I would like to kind of go back to the gold confiscation that you mentioned, and I think it's really, really, really similar to the narrative that some legislations are trying to push right now as far as non-custodial wallets go and stuff like that. Because I think when you think about non-custodial wallets and keeping funds on non-custodial wallets, it's really similar to keeping your gold in a safe at home versus keeping the gold at the bank or whatever. So yeah, I just find this this similarity really interesting. But as far as CBDCs, I think it's one of the big reasons, at least for me, to continue working on Blockwallet and continue working in the privacy sector and all that. And the reason is because what frightens me about crypto today is the fact that MetaMask is really, well, first of all, like MetaMask has quite a monopoly on the wallet market right now. And with that being said, they also have quite a monopoly on the Ethereum transactions that go through the chain and stuff like that. And so that being said, it's quite concerning that there is a really close connection between MetaMask and Infura, which also has quite a monopoly on node operators in the space.
Yep.
And even furthermore.
Speaking of that, I'm sure you remember that time where we all had a scare where people said that, MetaMask is no longer onboarding or receiving, dealing with transactions for people in Venezuela and Iran to comply with sanctions, right? I think that scared a lot of people.
A lot. And again, it's going back to like what I said in the very beginning. It's like the reason I joined this space is because I was really excited about, helping people who are not a part of the financial system and providing them with tools to be a part of it. It was really nice to see that the space was working towards inclusion and providing opportunities and all that. Right now it feels like we're going backwards. Right now it feels like those people becoming a leverage for something else. So it's really sad. But again, so and that happened because Infura decides to follow the regulations, which is really fair. But again, it's kind of heartbreaking to see. But so yes, MetaMask and Infura, they both are really close related to Consensus, and like Consensus owns them, right? And so it's also not a secret that Consensus is working with government agencies on testing and introducing CBDCs and stuff like that. And so for me, the problem with CBDCs is that with digital cash, you do have the option to program it in a way where you allow this digital cash to be spent on certain things and not allow it to be spent on other things. So, for example, you could allow people to spend this cash for like groceries, rent, and stuff like that. But you could say that now you guys cannot use it to use to pay for VPNs or pay for to support the causes that you like to support, so on and so forth. And that goes back to to the financial control. That goes back to the freedom of speech, the freedom of thought, and so on and so forth. And so for me personally, it's a huge problem today, and it's also the main drive for me to continue working in the space, especially with Blockwallet, because with Blockwallet we're trying to reimagine the whole flow. So with us, we don't use Infura, for example. We're partnering up with node providers and, with what do you call them? With IP proxies and stuff like that. And also, we're working with another team. It's called OmniAttack. The website is omniattack.io. The point of this project is that they're creating a private node infrastructure for mining and non-mining nodes, which is most important, I think, because again, non-mining nodes, they don't really have any incentive to do anything about privacy, but now they do. And so it's really exciting because for us, it allows us to, to not to use, those big node providers like Infura and opt in for something with a better architecture. So I think it's really important for people to have these options, because if they don't, consensus is just going to have too much power over crypto users. It's going to be really easy for them to work with the government agencies. It's going to be really easy for them to, to push their narrative. And then, I mean, right now, it might not look scary to people. CBDCs, it's whatever, what's the difference between CBDCs and having, numbers in your banking app or whatever. But I think it's actually quite dangerous, because again, it can be programmed in a way where people can spend their money on certain things and they cannot spend it on other things. And with that being said, I think, the problem of cash going obsolete, it's also quite concerning, because again, cash is such a financial instrument that cannot be traced, cannot be tracked. It's paper, it's like nobody knows where it is, so you're pretty much free to do whatever you want with it. But again, with CBDCs, there might be a lot more constraints as far as how you can spend your money, which is really dangerous. So from our end, that's what we're doing. We're trying to build a system that does not rely on monopolies today. We're trying to provide people with another option. We're hoping that this option is more user-friendly, it's more private, it's more secure. So that's what we do from our end here.
Well, thank you very much for joining me on this podcast. If you find this interesting, listener, well, join us on the podcast, subscribe, and follow us. Follow the Blockwallet on their Twitter, Medium, and Discord, and we will see you all soon again. Thank you very much.